Very good. And so, you've been, you're a very busy person, and you try to do a lot for your people, and we wanted to give you an opportunity for you to let everybody know, what's going on and your travels, and you've got a bunch of friends in here with you. And Joanne, have you? Let's see. Looks like we have one of your friends' call got dropped. Let's see if we can get them back on the line. They're calling. Hang on just a second. They just said that their call dropped. Hang on just one moment. Have you ever had Mark Ryan birth sign reading?
No.
Okay. Well, if you're willing to disclose your birth date, or if you don't want to do that publicly, I can put you in a room, but if you're willing to disclose your full birth date and whether you're born before or after sunset, I guess it is, Mark can do that for you. That'd be all right?
Sure.
It'll give you a good insight.
You can put her in the side room there below her.
Okay.
Give a date that way. That way no one it won't go public.
Okay.
Somebody's calling me on Blog Talk Radio. You're calling the wrong number. You're coming on my second line.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to call you back on a different line?
Oh, no. Well, just hold on. Let me just switch over, and then I can switch back, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Now, if something happens, I lose you. Just give me a shout on Facebook where to call you.
No, you could just call this number, the one you dialed.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it. Go ahead and change over.
Okay. Hello? Hello?
Also trying to get... Okay, I've got you. You're back.
Okay, we'll just do it outright.
There's nothing I can do. All I can do is drop you and call you back at the same number. Now, you've got a friend that called in from 775. Sorry, we got about 4 or 5, 6 people we're trying to direct traffic for, and we'll get settled down. The caller from area code 775, are you still there?
That might have been me. 622?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Hello?
Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. You are now in the host queue.
Hello? Hello?
Unmuted. Okay, Spotted Bear, do we have you back? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, do you mind telling Mark your full birthday?
September 20th, 1970.
Okay, September 20, 1970. And now, let's see. Now we've got somebody else there. We've got quite a bit of noise. It sounds like somebody doing dishes in the background. Do you think you could either move to another room or someplace away from where that noise is? been able to figure out her reading yet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
So I'm going to go by her Mayan one relatively quickly, and that's Vulcan, and I'm going to go to the sixth thumb Vulcan a little bit faster because in her case I think it's more relevant. So for just a quick thing, just so she knows, in the traditional Mayan Vulcan, her birthday was on 2 Manique, and that's I would connect her a little bit to deer energy, so she might have some deer as well as some energy in the background there somewhere. That would connect her also to the direction of the west. And she probably is familiar with the direction of west and the significance of that direction in accordance with the story of the White Buffalo Cattleman.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two main things. Now I'm going to go straight to the Sixth Sun Vulcan and what it says a little bit about her birth. Because I think it shows up a little bit more about her. In my experience, we'll go through actually 3 type readings. One is the forward flow of time, which is the way we normally look at time. And then there will be a backward flow, which is the Sixth Sun coming back into our present era. And then where the two come together. So on her forward flow time, she has things about purpose, discipline, balancing things, and a lot that has to do with correct action, doing things the right way. So I would not be surprised if she's been involved with things like that. It's a lot of those.
She's basically hell-bent for election, These
Now
are, explaining why she's driven.
Yeah, it's the key on it is that the aspects of power and balance and correct actions is balancing in her life or a background energy and going or singing in chorus with purpose and discipline. So it's kind of those things working together. Now, it is in a cycle that's a cycle that has to do with the power of dreams and intuitions, visions, and things like that. So she may have had visions that relate to these particular types of energies, and it may be helping to guide her in her purpose. So on the backward flow of time coming from the next world cycle, we see energies that had to do with the serpent. It has to do with survival, instinct, sacred power, life force, action, things that have to do with purification. And it's in the cycle of spirit. So those type of things may have been being shown up more in recent years more powerfully in her life. Again, a lot of things to do with action and sacred power and survival of things. Now, where these two come together, they come together, this is kind of like the bridge or the doorway between world cycles. And hers is a day called One Piece. And I think its name pretty much sums it all up. I think the Lakota have a word for it of we are all related. So it would connect to that type of thing. One key thing in here is it has aspects of peace, hope, also soul, joy, and forgiveness, and childlikeness. So those are things that might help her move what she's doing in her actions and stuff from one world to the next and achieve, what she's trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. And now you were born in 1970, you say, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you've just passed your 43rd birthday then. Okay. That 42nd year in the Black Robes, they call it the Age of Wisdom. So you've passed that milestone in your life, and and you're out there doing some heavy-duty work for your people. And sorry to interrupt, Mark. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we're just. Well, what does that? Does that make some sense to you, Spotted Bear?
Yeah, I think you guys been on my Facebook and but I wanted to what I'd like to do as we get started here is we have Steve Morningchild and David Buse, and if there's a 605 number with a 605 343,
They're here.
that's Charmaine Whiteface. And this is going to come all together. It's going to be a unique way of doing something different. But here we go. Before we get started, and thank you for telling my past and my present and my future. Because of what we do, always deserves a prayer from the Creator first. So I'm going to ask Steve Morningchild if he can lead us in that prayer.
Come on now.
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to have to use my own language. Lagi tugisgo into tamat na no sa tipsag stop tamaw. Kahil to man no ako magana kung may wat sa big square ko. Igagi way maigi way kapi aun go ya kan stop tama kahil gi way magawi. Tipo tama ko magi way tuwing up night one. Magagi tugisgo Great Spirit, I ask you to be humble towards us. As we're talking here, we want everything to go smoothly. We don't want any evil stuff to hit us, even though it's all just about all over the air right now. Have pity on us, and we want understanding amongst each other.
Right. Well, Steve, you want to introduce yourself and tell them where you're from, please?
Yep. My name is O-M2U01019, which means winged child in English. I'm speaking from a province here, the fictional province of Saskatchewan, in the fictional country of Canada. And I consider myself an American Indian. I'm not Native American because it was Noah who created natives. And the things I'll be talking about are some of the teachings I get from my teacher, what as I call my teacher Meredith Quinn. His Lakota name is Musa, who was born in Wapitan, Sisseton, South Dakota or North Dakota, whereabouts that would be. And I'm a Nihio, Cree Indian, and I reside in an area that was ceded over by our great-grandfathers in 1876. I think the treaties were made, which was the Treaty 6 territory. 121,000 square miles of it was ceded over by our grandfathers. And now today, the Prime Minister Steve Harper, is saying that treaties are no longer valid. And they were supposed to last as long as the sun shines, the waters flow, and the grass grows. And our treaties were, during the negotiations, the pipe was used by our elders. And according to Meredith Quinn's teachings, the foundations for international law are overseas it would be Palladium of Troy Treaty and the Seal of Solomon Treaty and the Noah's Ark Treaty. And here at North and South America it would be the Wampum Belt Treaties, the Kansas Authority Treaties, and the Peace Pipe Treaties to where I am at right now.
Uh-huh.
And our language is Nihilwiun, which would be Cree, and we still have our tribal custom and usage. We still do our ceremonies. We have 6-7 different ceremonies that we do here, and I happen to do one of them that's similar to the one Bigfoot and his followers were killed for in
Wounded Knee.
yeah, I think I don't remember how many people were killed over there. And according to a friend of mine, I got a pipe here that was supposedly came from Wounded Knee, from Bigfoot and his followers, and it's got cracks on it because I wouldn't doubt it. It came from there because the soldiers were told to destroy every religious artifact that the Indians had. So they must have stepped on the pipe here, but we still use it. I got it 3 years ago, and it finished the ghost dance that Bigfoot and his followers were going to do, or I don't know whether it was after they finished or they were going to do the ghost dance. That's when they were killed. So if the pipe didn't finish that ghost dance, it came up here and finished three of my lodges now. So I'm not claiming it is the right pipe, but somebody told me that the pipe came from over there, so I wouldn't be surprised because, that's how many years ago that happened, And if it's true, if that's their pipe, then why did it made its way up to me?
Steve.
I've done the ceremony for maybe 20, 25 times now. I don't keep track of it since I was born.
Now,
That's my lodge.
excuse me for interrupting, but what was your name again? Yeah, well, I'm sorry. What was your name again?
My name, Omiwaniuawa, means winged child.
Okay. And let me ask you, do you happen to be with the Joseph Big Head Band?
It's north of me, about 50 miles north.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've got a close friend who spent, actually two close friends who spent quite a bit of time on their reserve a few years ago, and are pretty close friends with the people on that reserve. And his name is Red Elk.
What would be their name?
His name is Red Elk.
Red Elk.
Red Elk.
Mm-hmm.
And I know. But when you mentioned Treaty 6, I went, wow. I was just wondering if you're with Joseph Big Head Band, and but yeah, he's
what would be his white man's name?
He goes by Red Elk. He lives in Washington, and let's see, I think 4 or 5, 6 years. Let's see, when was that? I'm trying to remember, but 5 or 6 years ago, he is a guest of Joseph Big Head Band. I can't remember the name of their.
Hey guys, can I ask a question?
Spiritual sites. Go ahead, Spotter Bear.
We have 2 more people that I'd like to introduce because we're gonna all talk about the same subject. If we could bring these other 2 people in too. Okay, the next one I'd like to introduce is a good friend of mine and also a Hunka brother from Ohio. His name is David Lee Buse, and he's a private attorney general who's helping in the law situation that's going to be happening with the American government and Indian nations. Dave, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Well, you did a pretty good job of it, Joanne. I am an actually retired factory worker. I worked for Ball Corporation for 25 years. The last big corporation I worked for. Once I got into the latter part of my employment with that company, I began to study government corruption. And as a result of that, I became a private attorney general, and have been aiding Native Americans and other Americans with court documents and research, whatever it takes, and helping prepare and file cases in the court. And that's basically what I'm doing now as a retired individual.
The next person is Charmaine Whiteface. She's my auntie from Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, land of the Teton Lakota Nation. The Treaty of Fort Laramie, 1831. Treaty of 1851. Treaty of 1868. Descendant of the Little Bighorn and the Wounded Knee Massacre. I believe her family also fought in the World Wars. Charmaine?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me on your show. Chante washtena pe tuzapye, zumila wabaga imachiapye. I said in our Tetuan language, which is the Lakota language, we are Tetuan people, we speak the Lakota language. I happen to be an elder, and I keep trying to remind our people, everybody, who we are. We are Tetuan, we speak the Lakota language. So I said in our language, I greet each and every one of you with a handshake from my heart. And I also said, my name is Zumila Bobaga, which means a little wise one who makes a mark. I am the spokesperson for the Sioux Nation Treaty Council, which was created in 1894. And we have continuously, since 1894, have been trying to get the United States to uphold their Constitution and their federal laws. In Article 6 of the Constitution, it says that treaties are the supreme law of the land. The Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868 was upheld in April of 2009, just that recently, yet the United States still continues to occupy our territory. Our treaty territory is made up of all of western South Dakota, parts of North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and Nebraska. I have worked with the Sioux Nation Treaty Council for a number of years and took over as a spokesperson after the passing of the previous spokesperson, Tony Blackfeather. Our job has been to seek the enforcement of our treaty, and including the return of our treaty territories, to get the occupiers and oppressors out of our treaty territory. And I've attended many meetings at the United Nations, both in New York and in Geneva, Switzerland, to that end. Most recently, at the UN General Assembly, just this last October 28th, Professor Alfred Desaias, independent expert for the General Assembly, recommended that we be allowed access to the Decolonization Committee, the United Nations Decolonization Committee. Now that committee then will help us to gain our freedom, our independence, and provide a process where the oppressors will have to leave our territory. And I'm sorry for all of the American citizens who are illegally in our territory, but that's not our fault. That's the fault of the federal government. The U.S. government has lied to the American people for all these years, and in that process, in 1889, created the states of Montana, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, and Nebraska, when all of these are in direct violation of the U.S. Constitution, Article 6, the March 3rd Act of 1871, and as, of course, the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. Mm-hmm. That treaty can only be changed by 3/4 of our adult males changing it. It has never happened. Never, never. Our people have never, ever changed that treaty. Even though parts of it, I've been told by our elders, were changed, but they still uphold it. They still, and the international community needs to recognize this. American people need to recognize this. As recently as April 2009, an American federal court upheld the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. A lot of the problems that we experience, we would not be experiencing if the occupiers would leave us to govern our own selves, if the occupiers would let us have true self-determination. The Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868 was a peace treaty. A peace treaty. Treaty for peace. P-E-A-C-E. A peace treaty. Yet, we are occupied, we are oppressed, we live under tyranny. William Allen White was a publisher, and he said, peace without justice is tyranny. And that's what we all live under in North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, and Nebraska. Our people live under tyranny. Tyranny by the United States government because they refuse to uphold their own constitution, their own federal law, the March 3rd Act of 1871, and the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868.
Hold on, Charmaine.
Yes.
Before you go any further, let me introduce myself so we can all get on the same level, and we could all share equal, and that way all of us can have equal time, I guess I'm trying to say. But I wanted to introduce myself and let the people know, as we're on this radio show, I'm also recording for the people of the world to see. And I'll also set it on the ambassadors of the world so they can view it, and the president of the United Nations so they could hear what we're saying. Because I did invite the ambassadors to listen to this radio show. And I did put it on 101.3 Renegade Radio, where they have 116 million listeners worldwide. And on Facebook, I have 100,000 viewers. So this is very, very important for each and every one of us to share equal and to discuss these treaties, and for the United States government to know that we are not afraid of what they have to say, no more. So I want to introduce myself in a good way with everybody's permission.
Let me add, we can edit out some of that stuff at the beginning of the show, and I can send you an edited copy. But go ahead.
Okay. Tokaya Tunkashla Wopla Waku Lebiacha Matonia Hemie Chunkbe Opio Matiwa. My dear relatives, before anything is said, I want to thank the Creator first. My name is Bear Woman. I am a descendant of 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre and the Little Bighorn, where the Lakotas, they did kill Custer. I'm also a descendant of World War I, World War II, 1973 during the AIM days. My father was a cop, and he put his gun down and walked off of his job. And today I'm a law advocate for Reno Sparks Indian Colony, Fallon Pike Shoshone Tribe. I am assistant judge to Rudy L. James, and I am a Tetuan Treaty representative as well as Charmaine Whiteface. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Chitelo. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. We're going to be talking about treaties here and laws. And Dave, to kind of get this started in the right way, I wanted to ask you if you would please tell us who America is named after and the 1933 Bankruptcy Act, and then Charmaine can fill in with the treaties, and Steve could come in with Canada and talk about Canada, and each of us have maybe 15-20 minutes each, if that's good.
Okay, I believe the America was named after American Vespucci. anyway, let's find out first of all what is America, or who is America, or who is America disguised as. If you go into the Bankruptcy Act of 1933, you will find that all offices, agencies, and departments were turned over to the receivers of the bankruptcy by the United Nations 12 years before they became an organization. And if you look at 28 United States Code at 3002, definitions 15, the United States means a federal corporation. And that dates back to the year 1779. And there's a court case which proves it. And I don't have it with me right now. I'm actually doing this phone conversation from my living room, relaxing. So I'm not in my office. But anyway, what people need to understand that in the Bankruptcy Act of 1933, all law and statute were turned over and became international law and copywritten. So they're all foreign to us. The next thing you need to understand about the Bankruptcy Act of 1933 is that Congress, in collusion with the President, committed treason against our country in the fact that disobeyed their oath of office, legislation, and executive orders to steal the treasury of the United States and declare war on the American people. So what has happened is that in the Administrative Procedures Act, all judicial Title III courts were dissolved. And so what they're running on you in court these days is a color of law fraud scheme. If you walk into court, you will find that probably most of them are flying a gold-fringed American flag. Falls under Executive Order 10834 by Dwight David Eisenhower, and it represents a martial law, which falls under military regulations. So the judge of a common pleas court or a municipal court or a United States district court who flies a gold-fringed flag within his courtroom, the American standard American flag with a gold-fringed flag with a gold fringe on it, represents the fourth color of the flag, mutilates the flag, and carries a 1-year prison term for anyone who misuses it, which would be 99% of your courts in America today. So they ignore the fact that they're under martial law. They're claiming to be under martial law, under color of law. What they do not tell you when you enter their court system is what law they're actually practicing. So are they practicing martial law? That would be military regulations. Are they practicing constitutional law? Well, no, they actually did away with the Constitution when Roosevelt, in Executive Order 6102, suspended the Constitution and then made all law and statute international law, except for the Constitution. Now, why would you turn all law and statutes over to international law and not the Constitution? The answer is very simple. This was the forming of what is known as the New World Order or the One World Government that they have been trying to force on people ever since. So now we have a major fraud scheme against the American people. So then in 1946, I believe it was, they begin to register men and women as a commodity through birth certificate fraud scheme. And what they do is you go to your wife, the wife goes to the delivery room, delivers the child to the doctor, who then makes up a birth certificate, live birth certificate. The live birth certificate is then sent down to the Bureau of Vital Statistics at your state level, and they create, I think it's 4 birth certificates. One is sent to the county coroner, one is sent to the health department in the county you live in. One is sent to the Department of Commerce, and the state keeps the other. So once the Commerce Department gets your birth certificate, they send it over to the Census Bureau, who creates a $1 million bond on the birth certificate. And this is where the fraud comes in, people. It is one thing to create you and register your birth. It is quite another to take your name and make a commodity of it and put a bond on it. So every American who has well, it's not just Americans, but it's whoever has a birth certificate, you probably have $1 million bond on that birth certificate. That is sold on the commodities exchange. And the Federal Reserve buys every one of them. And they are kept in the tower, a building called the Tower of Power on River Street in New York City. And what they do is they use that $1 million bond as the commodity and backing of the Federal Reserve note. Because if you know anything about money, a note is a debt instrument. So the fraudulent employees of ours set us up to be a commodity to buy and sell as slaves to the Federal Reserve System to back their counterfeit money. The Federal Reserve note. How do you pay debt with debt? You can't. So because 1933 they took away our money, they had to give us a way to pay our bills. So the Cesta Trust, that's the Cesta, C-E-S-T-A, Q-U-E, Trust, was developed so that the people could pay their bills, not discharge them, because a note discharges just a debt. But the Cesta Trust actually paid the debt. So if you want to study that, you can go into the Federal Reserve Act, National Banking Act, and all that stuff and dig it out for yourself. And you can also go into the Congressional Record, which is where I spend a lot of time. And you can do this all online. But I'm getting a little hoarse. I'm going to take a break here. I'm going to let, if anybody has any questions up to this point, I'll
Just wonder, how do you spell that? How do you spell that Cesta Q again?
Okay, it's Cesta, C-E-S-T-A, Q-U-E, Trust, T-R-U-S-T.
Gotcha.
Okay, but that the fact that the United States became a corporation other than a government. Understand this: every time you go to the polls and vote, you're actually committing fraud because you're not voting for the President of the United States or members of Congress. You're voting for the President and CEO of the United States of America Corporation, but they don't tell you that.
Oh, that kind of, yeah, go ahead.
Steve here. I pulled me and my wife pulled our birth certificates from vital statistics in Regina. I pulled mine out first 3 years ago, and my wife pulled hers out about a couple of years ago, and it was printed on bond paper. And I have it here. We have our long form. I'm talking about the long form, plus the middle-sized one. I don't know what they call it, but we have our birth certificates here, and we're sitting here with them, and we're pulling welfare, and we're hardly, just barely scratching around to stay alive.
See, the fraud scheme of all this is my birth certificate, by the way, that I have from the state of Ohio, has a gold seal on the back of it with the state seal on it.
But ours is on bond paper.
Yeah, mine is too.
Like that old money they use to print money out of that paper here in Canada. I don't know about the States, but that's what it's printed on.
Yeah, mine's on bond paper too. I actually have 3 birth certificates. One is in the all caps name. Oh, and by the way, let's discuss caps name.
All caps name.
A minute, okay? The all caps name is what they put on the birth certificate. And the all caps name represents one of 3 things: straw man, trade name, or corporation. So they make you a corporation by your birth certificate. Okay? And if you study the Internal Revenue Code, in 1895, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled income taxes unconstitutional. And then in 1911, the court ruled that corporations could be taxed. So they could be treated as, they could sue and be sued as an individual, but they did not have constitution. So what you have set up here back that far is the Supreme Court, and there's 60 rulings, by the way, the Supreme Court, which favors the American people, private citizen, over the Internal Revenue Service and government. Okay? I know I'm going all over the place here, so I hope you can stay with me. But when you hit at one point, it goes to another, to another, to another. But the court made several rulings in our favor as private individuals. Number one, income taxes are unconstitutional because they were never part of the original Constitution. Secondly, wage for labor is an exchange. No income is generated. Another ruling came about was that Congress, by legislation, cannot define income, since it cannot, by legislation, alter the Constitution from which it derives its power to legislate. So Mr. Roosevelt, back in 1933, when he suspended the Constitution, he terminated legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. He fired himself, and he set himself up, as well as Congress, as a de facto government. Roosevelt became the dictator of the United States of America, and every president since has signed a little paper upon taking office that he is the chief executive officer of the corporation. So now if you understand why they're fighting treaty and everything else, because no one made a treaty with the corporation. Mr. Obama does not have the proper evidence that he is even a U.S. citizen.
I have a question for Charmaine. Charmaine, are you there?
Hold on, Joanne.
still here, but I have to go pretty soon.
Okay, hold on, Dave. Let me just bring Charmaine in just kind of real quick here before she leaves. Is Charmaine, what is your input in the studies that Dave is saying?
This is the first I'm hearing of this. So it's interesting.
Do you think seriously that they would want this information getting out?
No.
There you have it. And people don't know where to go to look into all the shenanigans they pulled on us, the acts of war they pulled on us in the 1933 Bankruptcy Act. So what you have to do as an individual is go back into 1933 and a few years prior to that and begin to look at the congressional record, the legislative acts that were written and signed, okay? Then you begin to feel this whole fraud scheme out that they're playing against us. The United States of America have been duped. And they are paid, our newspapers, and are paid big money not to print these stories when they go out. When we take a case into court, okay, they are paid to dismiss the case so that this information cannot get into a public document. And if you make a motion during court to enter evidence that has any of this to do with it, they will deny you the right to do that. And that's because the pseudo-corporate courts, and that's what we have, their jurisdiction is only contract disputes because of their false flags and all the other stuff that they're doing. They're called pseudo-corporate courts. Each one of them are registered on Dun & Bradstreet and traded. And the judges are traded on Dun & Bradstreet. And they're running a QSIP, bond and commodities fraud scheme against you the minute you walk into court.
Just a second, I'm going to intervene again. Charmaine, do you remember the resolution 80-40, Sioux Nation Treaty Council? Hello?
I think she may have left us.
Okay, there's a resolution 80-40 that the Oglala Sioux tribe has no say within treaty, and that means that the corporations have no say within the treaties as well. That's exactly what Dave was talking about, and that's what I wanted Charmaine to elaborate on. Unfortunately, she's not with us, but go ahead. Maybe Morning Child can have if he knows something, that'd be good too. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just was wondering.
Yeah, the area code 306 and 605 had to leave us.
Okay.
You want me to try to get one of them back?
Yes, if you don't mind. That because what Dave is talking about is very serious, and sometimes get the 605 back, please.
Now we're talking treason against the American people. Is what our federal government's doing to us, and our states are co-conspirators in this, by the way, too, because when the United States became a corporation, all the states, the upper lowercase state of Ohio, Nevada, wherever you're from, became the all-capital corporation name. The state of Ohio, the state of Indiana, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they're all corporations. The United States DBA Corporation.
Trying to get them back, sorry. We'll try a couple more cycles here.
Is there anything that I must right now that anybody has any?
We are not available now. Please Please leave your name and phone number after the beep. We will
Okay, I guess they're gone. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I had one question for you, and that is, you alluded to the fact that these treaties have not been made with the corporation. So the question would become then, is it possible for some way to get enough information and get this out, bypass all their other public, control screenings of the media and such, and use the treaties not only to help the Native Americans, but help everybody?
Right now, I have 3 court cases suing the United States of America DBA Corporation in U.S. District Court in Toledo, Ohio right now. One of them is the request to the court is to ask Eric Holder to go to bankruptcy court and declare this corporation bankrupt and that it be dissolved after all its bills are paid. And they do not use the American people to pay this because they never had our consent in the first place to borrow money against our good names, faith, and credit.
And I'm talking to the United Nations asking to get rid of the United States federal government due to the neglect of the treaties that are in place. I'm not asking them or begging them, I'm telling them that this was done illegally because a lot of Indian people, our ancestors didn't know how to talk English, so we always had an interpreter. And an interpreter was half Indian and half, might have been half Lakota or one of the other tribes. But that half-breed spoke only what he wanted, not what the people wanted on either side. And he got what he wanted. And he wanted to be...
The legal name for it is called fraud by trickery.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's also a violation of Uberima Fide, ultimate truth in contract law, where they fail to disclose all the pertinent facts of a contract. And a treaty is a contract. It is entered in between 2 parties. So therefore, it is a contract. The American, Native American could sue the pants off of this corporation for breach of treaties.
So instead of sue the hell out of them, we just close it down altogether. And that's what I wanted Charmaine and Steve Morningchild to stay on the phone for. Because what Dave is saying is very, very true.
And sue them. But we don't want to dissolve the corporation until they pay us what they owe us.
They'll never do that. They're broke. Remember, they're living off of us. We're not living off of them.
Supposedly they're broke, Joanne. But where is the audits? You have to remember the United States of America DBA Corporation has gone bankrupt 4 times. And Congress has written a legislative act instead of filing into bankruptcy court. Okay? So my question to Mr. Holder, which he has never answered, is, okay, in all of these bankruptcy acts, how much money has ever been forgiven the United States? He refuses to answer. Now, every lawfully established government agency has to have, from the Office of Management and Budget, an OMB number. Okay? None of the pseudo corporate courts that I have filed into, and I put it right on my paperwork, the name of the pseudo corporation, OMB number. In all the paperwork that I have filed, I have not yet, all the way from the Supreme Court of the United States to the U.S. District Court, to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeal in Cincinnati. Not one of these courts have ever given me their OMB number. Do you think that's strange? I do. Because if they had an OMB number, then they could receive federal funding. And so I asked Mr. Holder, okay, I know of one court in New York City that brings in $1 million a day. I want a full audit of that court, to where the money goes, because a court never gives you a true bill and invoice. They say, oh, it's court costs. Here, this is what you owe. I'm sorry, but don't they have to give you a true bill and invoice? Just like any other corporation? Things to think about, people. Go ahead, Joanne.
It's just all of this is very important, as the United Nations talking to them. The Great Lakota Nation has a lawsuit going against the United States government for the things Dave is talking about. And every person, starting with the Custa Q Trust for the indigenous land, it went from the Custa Q Trust to the IMM accounts. And then there was the Salazar and, oh gosh, I forget her name, that just recently came out, the monies that are supposed to be distributed to every Indian person, but because of the fraud scheme, they're not distributing having a hard time saying it. But Dave, go ahead, and if you can, call Morning Child, get him back on the phone, please.
What the United States government has done, or I should say, not let's clarify who the government is. The Constitution of the United States of America, in the preamble, very clearly states that we will have nothing to do with the British government or their laws. It's the very last paragraph of the preamble. You need to read it. Okay? So why are we practicing British law in American courts? You say, oh, well, how can we be doing that? How do you know they're doing that? The judges, the lawyers, the attorneys are members of a bar, B-A-R, which is short for British Accredited Registry. They're called barsters, and they answer to the Crown. Now, since I brought the Crown up, I need to clarify something else for you. The United States has a stranglehold on it in two documents, actually three documents. Number one is the King's Trust, which was signed following the Revolutionary War in Europe. I think there are 7 promissory notes that the United States pays to this King's Charter trust account through the Treaty of Peace that was signed in Paris back in 17 something, I forgot what the exact date was. So that's the first hold. The second hold is that the Charter of the Carolinas is where they are running their court system from today, which means that the United States, that Europe, or England, I should say, has a stranglehold on the American people. That they consider the United States still their possession, and Canada is a subsidiary corporation of the United States. Now, a guy named Kevin Annett, A-N-N-E-T-T, took the Canadian Prime Minister the Queen and the former Pope, who just resigned here not too long ago, about a year ago, to World Court, the new International Court of Justice, and filed a criminal complaint against the Queen and the Pope. And they were found guilty on all counts, and an order was given by the court for them to submit themselves to sentencing in March of 2013. They failed to show for sentencing, so there is now a worldwide arrest warrant out for both the Queen and the Pope. And I can, if you'd like, I can go downstairs and dig out the court order number.
By the way, we have Rose Butler on the line with us now.
Bring her in.
Oh, she's here.
Joanne, and you take,
I'm here.
go ahead.
Okay, Rose, if you would like to share a little bit of your knowledge of what you learned, that'd be great. And hopefully you heard what Dave had to say. Sorry.
I kind of came in on the late end, but what I do know is that me and Joanne have worked on several cases trying to get some kind of attention into corruption within reservations, and we've hit every avenue that there is. And what we're finding is that there's a failure in these court systems to recognize the sovereignty of these reservations, and when we take it to higher levels, they just pretty much just ignore it.
That goes into what I was saying earlier about the fact that they protect each other.
Yes.
What they do to one nation, they'll do to all indigenous nations. And what they do to the Indian nation, they'll eventually do it to the black nation, the Mexican nation, the white nation. They don't discriminate when they come to hate and greed. They're in for themselves. And many of us know that who live here now. A lot of homes have been repoed, cars, bank accounts shut down if you don't pay. And they don't pay their taxes, but yet they want you to pay yours. That's the way I see it.
The only case that I've seen that's really made the forefront is with the Shoshone out here in Nevada, where they filed human rights violation against the United States, and in the UN court they won. But winning and applying that are two different things.
Well, a lot of people don't understand. When you get a win in court, to enforce it, you have to get a writ. Mm-hmm. And that writ is what gives you the authority to go out and collect on it. Okay, they don't tell you that. You're supposed to know that when you go to court. You're supposed to know that you need a court order and a writ.
Yes, you have to follow.
So there's no statute of limitation on fraud. So since the court committed fraud against you by failing to advise you of that, in fact, it's a legal maxim that it is a fraud to conceal a fraud. So if you want to look into legal maxims in the back of your Black's Law Dictionary, you will find that there are several pages of legal maxims that these courts ignore.
Yeah, they don't give you a handbook on.
No, because you're supposed to know the law when you walk into court. Okay, and that's where they get you. They wait for you to make the fatal error, and then they just shut up because they're not going to tell you what the law is.
Such as crossing the bar.
And you have to understand that when you hire an attorney, okay, the last part of the bar, the last paragraph of the bar is that if you represent your client, you can be disbarred.
And if you have a law, what about the law license, Dave?
They don't. None of them have a law license, Joanne. They use their bar card as their authority in court. These guys don't have law licenses. Are you kidding me? License. They're using their bar cards, for crying out loud. Ask your attorney. I'll tell you what. Whenever you deal with an attorney, tell him you want two things. You want a copy of his law license. You want a copy of his bar card. You want a conflict of interest statement. And after they tell you have a nice day, refuse to help you. You know how crooked they are. Another thing is always tell them, I need a complete log every time you make a phone call on my behalf. I want to know who you called and how long you talked. You're not just going to hand me a bill without any data on it. They will throw you away faster than sand in an earthquake. Because I have had attorneys here in Hancock County, Ohio, tell me, if I represent you, I will never win a court case. Yeah. Why? Because I know more than most of these friggin' attorneys do.
There is definitely a lack of education of treaty law.
Let me ask you this question. When you were in school, how much law did you study?
None.
That leads us back to talking about Pine Ridge and Wesley Glenn Dick's case and the documents that I left with you, Dave. Those starting with Pine Ridge, there was $2.64 billion, right, Dave and Rose?
Yeah, it was pretty close to that figure, Joanne. I scanned all those and sent them to you. I don't know if you ever got them or was able to open them. I never heard any more back from you, but some of them were rather large. I don't know if the computer was able to send it all to you. But anyway, we have it all on. We have all this on discs now so that several people got involved in it, and so they can't. If they come in and destroy the actual paperwork, we've got it backed up. So I'm not worried about it.
I know from my home here in Nevada, some of my paperwork has walked out of my apartment without my knowledge, and I'm not happy with that. But like Dave said, Pine Ridge and Rose will both verify. I showed Dave. I took a trip to Ohio, Donovan, Illinois one time, and we met. And Dave looked over the paperwork with me, and we struggled for about 5 days with Pine Ridge. And Rose, she too seen. Not only did she see the paperwork, but she took a trip to Pine Ridge and seen the corruption in Pine Ridge herself. Matter of fact, she was able to make a few friends and bring them home with her, little bitty guys.
Can I insert this arrest warrant for the Queen and the Pope? The court order is dated August the 4th, 2013, and the order number is 022513-001. And they were found guilty of international crimes against humanity, children trafficking, children pornography, and other things, and they were sentenced to 25-year prison term. And there is an international arrest warrant out for both of them. And if you aid and abet, it goes on in the order. If you aid and abet in any way the Catholic Church or the Queen, you can be arrested as a co-conspirator. All their assets are to be seized. And all stolen land is to be returned to the original owner.
And Paris Treaty Article 9 says that if the documents fall into the hands of the police officer, they're to be returned to the original owner. The original owner of the land are the native Indians of the land. That's both Canada and the United States, Hawaii, Micronesia, and Alaska.
Turtle Island in general.
Yes, exactly.
Turtle Island, as the original people called it, Turtle Island. The English, Portuguese, and whatever, when they came over here and established their post office by planting their flag on the soil, who told us we had to be discovered? I never got a communique on it. Of course, I wasn't born back then, but hey.
After they planted their flag, that's when we killed Custer and took the flag. The Great Lakota Nation never gave the United States or anybody the authority to re-replicate the American flag in any kind of sort of way, even down to adding the gold fringe. That's why it's illegal for that flag to be on this land. It was never to be replicated or added stars or stripes or nothing, but they did it. Rose?
I mean, I'm kind of a little illiterate in the area of some of that, but I know through, like, the Revolution, when the colonists took control of the land, that's when they started changing that flag.
See, this is why it was important for I wanted Steve Morningchild to be here too, and Charmaine Whiteface, because all of us need to learn the things about what is going on to help one another. And I'm glad, Rose, thank you for coming on and joining us and being a part. And Dave's an excellent teacher, and he's a great friend, and I really deeply appreciate to call him my hunka brother, to helping us, get things together, because I've noticed that there was a lot of things that took place and nobody had the right answers. And when Dave and I had come together, he knew about the English way of law, and I knew the treaty part of it, and we put our ideas, our thoughts together, and we had come to an agreement that if we wrote it together and wrote it under treaty, it would make a lot more sense. We'd combined them together. And Dave did a lot of writing, especially for Wesley. And he has taught Wesley and I both how to do court documents. That was our biggest downfall, was writing letters in the court. We were always allowing other people to write court documents for our Indian people when our Indian people themselves were the supreme law. And that's where treaties came into effect, where there's two kinds of sovereignty. There's sovereignty as the sovereignty in nation, and then sovereign, S-O-V-R-A-N, where the individual then stands up and becomes a leader. And as long as the government never told anybody that, how could you become a sovereign? How could you lead sovereignty? How could you lead your people to a better way of life if you didn't know the way out? Hello? Where's our radio host go?
I'm right here.
All right, you have any questions for Dave? Anything, or Rose, or I?
No, I sure don't. I tried getting the fellow from Cree back, and he said he wasn't going to be able to continue.
Well, I know that on the sovereignty issue right now that some tribal governments are really twisting a lot of what it means to be sovereign, and we have some issues where they're trying to gain certain funds through claiming sovereignty or instilling certain laws within the reservation by citing sovereignty, and the laws are going against what the tribe themselves are want. And we're having that issue with Pine Ridge on the alcohol issue because they're claiming sovereignty, that they can do what they want, but the council in turn is elected by the people of the tribe and are supposed to do the bidding of that tribe. But they're claiming, because the people don't want the alcohol, now they're claiming sovereignty, which you can't be sovereign within your own nation. Your nation is sovereign, not the council.
You have to clarify sovereignty. First of all, let's take it back to the beginning. In the beginning, a sovereign God created the heaven and the earth and all things therein. And then he created man and woman as sovereigns, sub-sovereign at the least. Government, well, first of all, let's go on further. Then God wrote the law. Okay? And then man took the law and created the government and said, this is what you are allowed to do. And then he either elected, appointed, hired, whatever, to run his government through either a constitution or an agreement, some kind of document. Then our employees decided, they're not capable of running their government. So then they created us as their commodity and slaves through the birth certificate fraud scheme. Are you starting to catch on?
Just to elaborate what Dave said, in the 80-40 resolution, it says, I'm going to read a couple of them, and it's going to verify what Dave is saying on behalf of the Sioux Nation Treaty Council. This is the Tetuan Sioux Treaty Council. The Constitution and bylaws of the Oglala Sioux Tribe is enacted through the Willard and Howard Act of June 18, 1934. The Willard and Howard Act of 1934 forbids to interfere or give governing authority. Tribal council do not have authority to hire an attorney to take legal advice or give legal advice on behalf of the Sioux Nation as specified in the Constitution and bylaws of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. The Constitution and bylaws of the Oglala Sioux Tribe specify support of financial assistance to the National Sioux Council, and whereas the Oglala Sioux Tribe is a branch of the Sioux Nation, is comprised of the 7 bands of the Sioux Nation Treaty Council, is the sole authority to take legal advice and seek presidential executive orders, and congressional remedies on behalf of the Sioux Nation members are legislates. Civil or criminal class actions in the court of law. The Sioux Nation Treaty Council is enacted through the Treaty of the Sioux Nation. That means that the Treaty Council, the Tetuan Treaty Council, is the lead council among the Lakota, just as Charmaine was saying. And that's what I wanted her. God, I wish she wouldn't have never hung up. But what Dave is saying is right. What our Indian people are saying is right. What Steve Morningchild is saying is right. And it's really important. And they said it. I believe Dave knows this, and I know Rose knows it. Is they want to kill off the Indian people, and if they killed our Indian people off, then they can call this land America and do what they wanted. And they're doing it in such a way that even Obama's involved. Am I right, Dave? Hello?
As far as I know, they do not want the United States to exist as a nation or any other nation to exist as a nation. They want to create a new world order, a one world government. And their intention is to kill 98% of the population. And those who survive will be the slaves to the corporation. And that is found in the United Nations documents. And if you can find Marie Murray, who was a former employee of the UN, she was on Freedom Fighter Radio, and I think if you go back into the archives of Freedom Fighter Radio, you will find where we had her, because I used to be the co-host of Freedom Fighter Radio, and we had her on the show, and she gave us the actual proof and documentation on the radio, and then sent it to Jim, and I can't think of his last name now. Anyway, sent it to Jim, the actual the show. The documentation's proving that their goal is to kill 90% of the world's population.
Isn't it to decrease the population down to 500 million?
Because they're afraid we're going to run out of, like, gas, oil, whatever, okay? They were also, the UN was responsible for giving $10 million to the Department of Army to develop the AIDS virus. And then they infected 1 million Africans with smallpox, injected the AIDS virus into the vaccination, and that's how they eliminated 1 million Africans.
Also, they injected that into the hepatitis vaccine here in the U.S. in order to diminish the undesirable population. I seen an article out of the Washington Times back in 1989.
Oh, you're probably right. That's the right era.
And that the AIDS virus came on the scene very fast and killed very fast. And now that it has the time to
They actually have a cure for AIDS, but they're just not letting it out. Okay. They have a cure for it. By the way, all my research, so that people understand where I come from, all my research is done through congressional records, research in bills and acts of Congress. And by the way, acts are acts of war against us. Okay. Trading with the Enemies Act. They made the American people the enemy of the New World Order. And that's why we are treated like animals in a cage when we go to court. Okay? And what was it, Joanne? Title 7, Chapter 2, at 136B, created man as an animal in the Farm Bill. So all men are animals according to law. And why do we have to be animals?
Don't tell that to Sue Wallace. She'll try to kill us and feed us in Burger King.
Well, there was a person, a gentleman, I believe, that was looked into what you're talking about, being men classified as animals, and it was a case, I believe it was in Texas, and they were working with colloidal silver, and these particular people had bought this other company that had been busted and put out of business, and this particular gentleman, I believe, was a lawyer that took on the case and worked on defending them, and he brought up a case that cited exactly what you're talking about, where they changed the law and they said man and other animals in the law.
Yeah.
And he brought up a freedom of religion case or defense against that, saying that that violated their rights, religious rights, that only recognized man not as an animal, but as something created by the Creator. Exactly. So they brought up a case like that, and I believe that they won that case.
I've seen documents.
Are you aware of that case?
I have not studied that particular case, no, but I understand that since I have been bringing this out to the general public, there's a lot of people going back into court under new evidence relating to their case. How can you, if you've made me an animal, your job is to feed me. How can you charge me with crimes if you're as the owner, supposedly the state owns all the wildlife, okay? So if I'm your ward, how can you charge me with criminal acts?
I've seen documents from the Trail of Tears, and they counted the people by head, listing them like they would cattle.
Yeah, exactly what they did. You have to understand that England, when they came over here, they pulled the same stunt on Turtle Island that they played in Ireland. They come in, they established their colonies, they established their little form of government, they wrote it in language that nobody understood but them, and they took over the country. That's called land theft.
Well, I didn't even know the word Yermaphites until Dave taught the word to me, and then Yermaphites good faith and Yermaphites on paper, and I didn't know there was such a thing to ever exist. So I thank Dave for that, and I hope that a lot of people, they get to listen to this show because it is important. And if there's anybody else out there that'd like to join us, just please call in.
See, the thing with Yermaphites is that your courts, actually what you don't realize, when the court says sign this document, they're forcing you to sign it without revealing the fact that you're entering into a contract. And the fact that they have just done that is fraud because they failed to reveal to you what their intent was. So if you've been convicted of anything in court, I don't care if it's a parking ticket, they failed to reveal the fact that, number one, they didn't have any authority over you in the first place. Because all the pseudo-corporate courts can only deal in contract law. That's it.
Dave, if I could mention, and Rose, I wanted to talk about these things that we're talking about, these treaties and the embezzlement of federal government documents being manipulated through lack of good faith, maybe is a better word. But I wanted the people out there who's listening, I'm trying to raise $50,000 for propane in Pine Ridge Dave knows that there's enough embezzlement in Pine Ridge to build a warehouse, but there is no warehouses in Pine Ridge. Rose been to Pine Ridge and know that people are paying rent on condemned homes. And
horrible homes.
And some of these homes they're fixing up, but they're only doing it because they know that a few of the homes are my relatives. But on the other hand, I know a lot more people in Pine Ridge than the Oglala Sioux tribe thinks. And what I also wanted to say was the tribe wanted to hand the corporation back over to the BIA. And the BIA is ran by the United States government, but like Dave was saying, because of the 1933 Bankruptcy Act, it was handed over to the United Nations, where the United Nations pays attention to the treaties. And the Treaty of Paris, if anything should fall in the hands of an officer, it goes back to the original owners, who are the Indian people. But until that step happens, these people will always continue to live in condemned homes. My relatives, let me correct that. My Lakota Oyate people and others on reservations will continue to live in condemned homes. And
remember, Joanne, that they have given us the Siskiyou Trust accounts, the Native Americans and the American people themselves. All they had to do when they needed to buy something was to go in and sign it, their account number, and their signature, and the Siskiyou Trust would have paid for it lock, stock, and barrel. Do you understand why the Congress breached their fiduciary duty by not telling the American people that that trust account exists?
tell us why, Dave.
So, any Native American out there who is the Department of Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs, is handing over money to the tribal councils, and they're not giving it to the original people, their native nations. They should be able to take this propane when they need it, order it, and then bill the council for payments.
Oh, I
shouldn't have
agree.
to worry about being paid or paying the bill. The money should already be there. And if it's not there, then they need to go into the Siskiyou Trust and get it.
With the tribal councils that are right now in charge of everything, the corruption is so bad, and things need to be dished out the way that they're supposed to, but they're not, because they have greedy people that are lining their own pockets and taking care of their own families,
Sure.
and leaving the others to fend for themselves. I just got word here this last week that, and I won't mention his name, but that we have one council member that's probably got the backing of many.
Yes, I'll tell you all about that. Garfield Little Dog Still is a... hold on, Rose. I want to say this. I'm glad you brought this up. Garfield Little Dog Still. His picture's on my Facebook. And Garfield is a nephew to past President John Still, and a first cousin to Kevin Still. In politics, that's called nepotism. Nepotism is illegal. Garfield Little Dog Still, he is he sodomizes young boys, and he uses his nephews to rape young girls. And these young boys and girls, they brand them with a machete with the letters TBZ, and gives these young kids cocaine And some of the kids who told their parents or grandparents, there was actually a case where he ran over one of the kids